Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for being at the Delaware County Sustainability Commission meeting this evening. I want to welcome all of you here. I'm going to start sharing my screen so we can go over the agenda. Oops, sorry. Okay, so our agenda today is we'll have first like the roll call, and then we'll actually have an interactive question. And then we'll have a special introduction of the Solid Waste Authority interim CEO, James Warner. Then we'll approve the meeting minutes. Then we'll have a Chief Sustainability Officer update, a zero waste update, then a presentation by our Bryn Mawr students. And then we'll also have public comment interspersed. We'll talk about the Sustainability Symposium. We'll talk about EAC engagement. We'll have a sustainability plan update, subcommittee updates, and then new business. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen just to do the roll call. Okay, if you are here, say here or present as I go down the list. Steve Clark. Jacqueline Rhodes. Scott Sidlow.
I am here.
Okay, thank you. Jenny Sachs. David Director.
I am here. Also, Steve Clark will be here. I spoke to him an hour or so ago, so he is expecting to be here shortly.
Okay. Sean Stansel. I know I saw Sean.
He's muted, so.
Okay, I'm going to say that you're here because I did see you. Becca Yurkovich. I know Cephas is not here today. Okay. All right, I'll go back to her in just a minute. Crystal Gauld.
Present.
Oh, thank you. Becca Yurkovich.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Becca. Okay, so it looks like
Yeah,
great. We have
here.
Oh, great. Steve Clark. Oh, this just takes a minute.
Here.
Okay, thanks, Steve. All right, so we definitely have quorum. So now the government representatives, Francine.
Here.
Ed Orner. Mark Manfrey.
Here.
Tom Schaefer.
Here.
Michael McNichol. Ed McGargy.
Here.
Laura Goodrich Cairns. Okay, let's see if we have quorum there. We do. All right, we do. All right, so we totally have quorum. So that means that we can approve the meeting minutes, which is the next item on the agenda. So I'll share my screen. I'm sorry, we don't want to do that yet. Wait. Actually, wait. We're going to be doing something else that's more fun. So, all right. So actually, I do need to share my screen though. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is take out your phones, and we're going to have a fun interactive question here. So what I'd like you to do, or you can open another browser window. So what I'd like you to do is go on to www.menti.com and you input code 20766070. And the question is, name 3 things you do consistently that contribute to a more sustainable and environmentally friendly future. So this is for everybody, everyone who's connected here, not just the members of the Sustainability Commission. So it's all of you. So you go into a browser on your phone, or you can open up another one just on your computer, and you go to www.menti.com, and then you input code.
Can you spell it? Can you spell Menti?
Oh, yes. M as in Mary, E, N as in Nancy, T as in Tom, I as in Island.
Carol, where do you enter the code?
Oh,
it co-
once yeah, it'll come up. It'll say, please enter the code. So you go to www.menti.com, and then it'll prompt you to put in the code.
What
Well-
code is it again?
Oh, let me repeat it. 20.
Hang on.
Okay.
I'm putting it in the chat also. I
Two-
put the website too.
Oh, okay.
20.
2076 6070. So it's 2076 6070.
Okay.
Thanks for putting in the chat, Francine.
Sure.
Okay, let's see what comes up. So with a word cloud, if more than one of you answer the question as the same way, it's like larger on the screen. So let's take a look at the big items on here. Recycle is the big one. Composting, plant-based diet, and no plastic seems to be, and compost, no plastic. Those seems to be the high items, but there's also, let's see, vegetable garden each summer, organic gardening, avoiding plastic, recycling glass. So like here, okay, so these are the big items: reusable bags, plant-based diet, recycling, compost, and no plastic bags. So then reusable bags and no plastic bags are kind of the same thing. Sustainability education, reusable water bottles, Talk Up Ready for 100, which is great. Organic gardening, and it seems like there may be like plastic interspersed in here too, but we all just kind of said it a little differently. Oh, plant-based, here's another one, plant-based. So let's see, work from home, no driving, vote and speak up. Yeah, it depends on like, who you're voting for. Like, if you're someone who believes in sustainability, that's good. Learning, walk a lot, right? Instead of driving your car, drive an electric car. Advocacy, energy audits, drives an electric vehicle. Don't buy paper towels.
Mm.
Support democracy. Less meat diet. See, if you see, sometimes we say them a little bit differently, but we're all kind of saying the same things. Less meat diet. Walk instead of drive. Drive a hybrid car. Buy directly from a farm. Use my own utensils, like I guess instead of like plastic ones. Energy efficient appliances. Recycle glass. Oh, buy thrifted clothes. So instead of buying new clothes, buy used clothes. So then, like, I guess I read that little pieces of like fragments of like garments are like already like inundating our oceans, like little tiny fragments of like clothing. EV, electric vehicle, drink tap instead of like getting like bottled water. Vegan, energy savings, turn out the lights. Oh, eat mostly vegetarian. Solar panels, recycling again. Let's see. Solar support, advocacy for open space, drive slow, do recycle. I think I mentioned them all, but what a great like snapshot of like all of the things that we're doing. So what I can do is actually like save this and like send it to all of you. So it's kind of nice because then you can look onto this and say, oh, like, like maybe you do buy a lot of paper towels, and you may say, well, I mean, I'm guilty of buying paper towels. I'm guilty of that myself. So, I could look at this list and say, oh yeah, you know what, maybe this week I'm going to try to just use like reusable towels, or make sure I have some decent reusable towels here. And like, so some of you may like recycle a lot, but you look on here and say, I still use plastic bags every now and then. How about I like not use them this week? Or, I don't eat a lot of, I eat mostly like, meat in my diet, but you say, well, how about I just have a plant-based like Monday, or a plant-based Tuesday or something? Or like a whole week, or eat mostly vegetarian for like a week, or instead of making sure I bring my own utensils with me when I have to like go out to like get some takeout if I'm like out of the office or something, or out of my home. So anyway, I'll save this and I'll send it to all of you, because I think, and vegetable gardens, like there's so many neat things. So thank you for doing the survey. And let me look at the chat. Is there? Oh, this graphic should hit our social media too. Okay, neat. Great idea. Great idea. So I'll capture this and we'll send it out. So now we're going to go to the next item on the agenda, which is the introduction to the Solid Waste Authority Interim CEO James Warner. So I'll stop sharing just so you can introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you, Carol. I'm Jim Warner, and I've been retained by the Solid Waste Authority. I'm not an employee, so I'm an executive advisor, consultant, pretty much managing all areas of their business now through authorized to do that from the board. So we feel it's vitally important that the authority obviously be part of the Sustainability Commission and the work you're doing, especially since one of the responsibilities taken on by the commission is an update to the 10-year solid waste plan for the county. Mike McNichol, who was in your roll call, he will not be participating. I don't think he has in the past, and he won't be participating forward. So my background is 35 years in the solid waste industry. Most of that spent with the Lancaster County Solid Waste Management Authority. I was the CEO there for 22 years, from 1996 through 2018. A very big system, the largest public integrated waste management system in Pennsylvania. And while I was there, I did a lot of things that are right up the alley of what you're working on besides the solid waste part. While I was there, I implemented an entire renewable energy portfolio that included landfill gas to electric, where we recovered waste heat from the combustion engines and piped it up to Turkey Hill Dairy. You're all familiar with that brand. They have a manufacturing facility right next to our landfill. So they were able to stop buying waste oil or diesel to run their boilers through the use of the waste steam. I've sold renewable energy credits in the New Jersey market, solar renewable energy credits in the Pennsylvania market, even sold carbon credits back when there was a market for those on the Chicago Climate Exchange about 10, 15 years ago. Also have implemented a solar project, which provided 80% of the energy for our transfer station, and converted our entire transfer fleet from diesel to compressed natural gas about 4 or 5 years ago. So that was all while doing our base work, which was managing waste. We have had a landfill, 2 waste energy plants, and a drive-through household hazardous waste facility where we serve about 70,000 customers a year. And we managed 2 transfer stations and managed 1 million tons a year of waste. So I retired at the end of 2018 and was retired for 3 years. And through certain contacts, the Solid Waste Authority reached out to me. They have a void in their leadership, and they have a lot of major tasks at hand. And right now they need a lot of help in seeing their way forward. And I've been tasked with doing that. So I'm happy to be here, happy to participate, and look forward to it.
Thank you, Jim. And welcome. Let's see, I'll
Thank
go
you.
back to the agenda. Next is approval of the meeting minutes. So I'll bring up the meeting minutes.
Oh, by the way, Carol, Laura is here. She has joined the meeting.
Oh, Laura. Okay, great. Okay, I'll make sure I record that in the roll call. Okay. or in the spreadsheet from the roll call. Okay, so here are the meeting minutes from our last meeting. I don't know if anyone has any comments about it or anything that they think needs to be changed. If not, do I have a motion from someone to accept the meeting minutes from December?
Hi, Carol. I'll move. I'll second. Crystal Gold.
Okay, and who made the first motion?
Laura Goodrich. I
Oh,
believe.
thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. Our meeting minutes are approved from December. So now we'll go to our agenda again. Next is a Chief Sustainability Officer update with Francine.
Thank you. I just want to note also that Jacqueline is now on as well.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now that it's January 2022, I just want to give a little overview of the vision that we are moving forward with this year. We have guiding principles that we have agreed to with our sustainability plan: equity, economic growth, education, and governance. These are the guiding principles that will feed through our sustainability plan. This year, we plan to recruit and form subcommittees to develop targets and actions for each of our 5 focus areas. We want to meet bi-weekly until the plan is finalized in September. These 5 focus areas are health and wellness, energy, waste, climate resiliency, and natural resources. And I plan to talk more about these later on in the meeting in regards to the high-level goals that are associated with each. And we do hope to finalize our sustainability plan, including the LCAP, by September. And in September, we also hope to launch it with a press event and reception. So the high-level priorities right now that we're working on include seeking federal funding through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And so there are lots of EV
Francine,
opportunities.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh.
Are we recording this?
Sean, I believe we are.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. It's just Crystal had a good question and I wasn't sure how to confirm it. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, yes, no worries. So our high-level priorities this year are seeking this federal funding of the infrastructure bill that's out there. There's a lot of opportunity, millions of dollars that we want to take advantage of for EV infrastructure, EVs, climate resilience work, active transport. So we will provide an update at our next meeting on where we are with the projects that we believe we can use in applications for those different funding opportunities. We're going to be developing a facilities master plan through Public Works based upon the facility condition and needs assessment that we completed. This includes energy audit data and spatial analysis data, meaning looking at the departmental needs with staffing and services provided to the public, consolidating where we would like to, and improving building conditions. We're going to begin the capital improvement program planning process again for 23, as we did last year, which involves getting a steering committee together with all the departments from the county and creating a statement of need form budget call. We're going to then also work on waste reduction in our county buildings. We're going to formalize a recycling program and improve the front end and back end of recycling in our buildings, meaning having an outreach campaign for building occupants, also providing our facility staff with training and materials needed to properly recycle in our buildings, and then also having the dumpster and transport disposal services to recycling facilities. We are going to continue with our vehicle electrification program. We did submit an AFIG application for 69 EVs and 40 charging stations. So I'll give an update on that once we know more. I think we'll know in May. And we are working on our municipal solid waste management plan, which you'll hear more about in this meeting. We're also going to work on increasing, preserving open space and trails, improving access to sustainability and resilience resources for communities in Delaware County, all communities with equity, streamlining our county operations and beginning to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through specific initiatives. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about a fun activity, an Earth Day Sustainability Symposium that we'd like to plan for April. And we have Pippa here, who was our intern during the summer, and she's going to help us with this project. Also, just a note, there is a book that was just published at the end of December I'm proud of it that I wrote chapter number 1. It's Trailblazers for whole school sustainability. And it's a case study on the sustainability plan that I worked on when I was with the school district of Philadelphia. So if you are interested in that book, it's on Amazon. And it's from the Green Schools National Network. And that's all I have for right now. I'm going to stop sharing.
Congrats, Francine.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Does anyone?
Francine?
Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't there a lot of federal money to replace lead pipes? And is anybody in the health department or anybody going to push that for especially Chester?
So I'm not sure about that piece. And I can look further into it. Right now, the planning department, we're not working on that, but I do see it as an opportunity. And you're right, that is actually one of the large pots of money, which is to remove lead pipe infrastructure. So I'll look further into that and see if the health department, which is very new, so the health department just formed, but they do have an environmental health unit, and I'll talk to our folks over there and give you an update.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Francine? Okay. With that, I'll share my screen again so we can go back to the agenda. Zero waste update. Is Ruth Abbey here?
I am here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Oh, good, good, good. Okay. So, hey, good evening, everybody. Let me start my video. And Francine, is it okay for me to share my screen as well?
Yes.
All right, I will share my screen. We're very excited to be back and give a little update to the Sustainability Commission. For those of you who are on the Zero Waste Committee, this will be a little bit of a recap, but I thought it would be good to bring everybody up to speed and to share where we are in the planning process. We're starting really quickly. It's been a fast start. But what are things we wanted to cover tonight was where we are with the public outreach tasks. As we talked about before, the county is taking a broader view of the municipal plan update idea and essentially making it a stakeholder-driven opportunity so that everyone in the community has the opportunity to say, what do they want to see in their municipal waste plan, and what do we want to do besides what's required by state law in terms of future programs, policies, waste reduction, reuse, repair fairs, whatever it is that people might like to see in a plan over and above what is required by state law, which is primarily about documenting the disposal assets in the county. And so we are launching, and Francine, I don't know if we've set the dates yet, but we proposed some dates to Francine, but we are launching our public outreach process and have proposed some dates coming up. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what those are and then the process, and then we can have a little bit of a discussion and input. So essentially what we are doing is we're launching a series of listening sessions. That's what we call them. And they will either be one-on-one meetings or group meetings with a bunch of different stakeholder groups in the community. And we'll talk a little bit about who that should be. But it's essentially the usual suspects, the folks that are involved in the industry, recycling, processing, disposal, haulers, et cetera. And then also large generators, school districts, universities, environmental, justice organizations, folks in the reuse business. So we're launching a series of listening sessions in the next 2 months to kind of get our ear to the ground, get an understanding from folks about the barriers and opportunities to waste reduction, recycling, composting, what kinds of services would they like to see, and what are the barriers to doing what they would like to do in the future. So that's kind of our listening sessions. Then we are going to be doing a series of online town halls, which we originally had the idea of pairing those with the public meetings. But at our last Zero Waste Committee meeting, we thought maybe instead we could go ahead and have the public meetings be hybrid meetings. So anyone that wants to stay at home and participate remotely, they can. And then, but then also have public, sessions, possibly in the library, possibly in, a library, possibly in a government building throughout the county to get input on the various stages of the planning process. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. So that frees us up to have other kinds of online meetings, and we thought we might start with a kickoff meeting. So at either the very beginning of February, we've kind of sort of penciled in, I believe, February 3rd to sort of say, hey, we're doing this project. This is an opportunity for everyone to get involved, put it out there on the social media, on the pub, press releases, et cetera, work with the municipalities to get them in their newsletters and just sort of say, hey, we are doing this now. And we really want this to be a stakeholder driven, meaning a community owned process. So we're thinking about that as a kind of an early first step, and we'd like your feedback on that. Then we will do the public workshops throughout the county, and we'll talk a little bit about the timing of those. We are doing some interviews with county staff that are not directly involved in the project, to the extent that they may have a role, whether it's legal, financial, planning. Otherwise, we want to be able to say that we're meeting with other parts of the county that are not going to be more intimately involved in the project. Then we're going to, we're having meetings with the Sustainability Commission. This doesn't really count, but we'll have sort of more formal meetings with the Sustainability Commission at points in the project where we are making progress and need your feedback. And we are also meeting with the authority staff and authority board, if appropriate, at different points during the planning process. As that as the keeper of our contracts and of our disposal assets, they are a key part of this process. And that's kind of the public outreach task. And then we have a couple of things that are required by state law. One is, of course, the public hearing at the point of the circulation draft, and then a presentation to the county commission on the final plan. And it's possible the county commission will want to hear from us sooner or later. But at some point, here's our final plan, and it's been vetted through the public process. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. And if you have any questions, it will probably be answered. So we'll kind of hold those off for a minute. In terms of our deliverables, we will be producing meeting agendas, presentations, summaries. We'll have the goals and guiding principles for the plan, public input on potential new and expanded policies, programs, and infrastructure. And then, of course, public input on the draft plan elements. That's what we've really asked our public outreach team as what their deliverables are. And this, if you can see it, is the schedule. And I'll just kind of go over that briefly. I kind of described everything to you already as to what everything was, but this is just in a calendar. And then it also includes, for the listening session, some of our targeted folks that we would be asking to be involved in either a one-on-one meeting with a superintendent of public schools, or we've also had the idea of reaching out to our 49 municipalities and scheduling a town hall meeting with all the town representatives, whether that's the town manager, mayor, a finance chief, whoever it might be, that we might be able to engage to get their understanding of their future, their desires. We also have a municipal survey that we are working on that we would like them to fill out. And so kind of maybe a kickoff meeting with the municipalities is an early meeting. Environmental justice groups, community groups, recycling organizations. We kind of talked about all those folks. And then we are also in the process of recruiting our advisory committee. So we'll talk about that in the next slide, but that's part of this process. So you'll see we have a lot of activities coming up here in January. In February, we do hope to have our kickoff meeting, hey, we're doing this, not too much content other than saying it's happening and get ready. And then our idea would be to come back in March with our first public meeting, which would be the goals and guiding principles. April would be the zero waste initiatives, or it's the different strategies that we're evaluating. In May, we would be looking at the draft plan elements. By May, that's why we're in a big hurry right now, but by May, we think we're going to be largely done with the bones of the plan. And then we'll be getting a lot of public feedback from the advisory committee, the Sustainability Commission, the authority. And then June, we'll be kind of wrapping all that up and releasing then what we would consider to be the preliminary draft plan, or the plan. And then we would have the circulation draft, and then we would circulate that. We would have a public hearing and then a presentation to the county commission. This August date is in flux because we won't know, for a little while yet, whether we are working on a substantial revision or a non-substantial revision. We've gotten the indication from the Department of Environmental Protection that it probably is a non-substantial revision, because we would not propose to take away any major recycling or diversion programs, but we'll be making an application to the Department of Environmental Protection very soon when we're saying, here's our scope, here's what we're doing, here's our schedule, and then they will give us the feedback. So that last meeting might extend, that public input process might extend for 90 days instead of 30 days. And so that's why that calendar may get delayed. I'm going to keep going, and then we'll answer your questions. This is our proposed advisory committee membership. So we've had a couple of meetings with the Zero Waste Committee. The Zero Waste Committee is our brain trust, right? That's your colleagues and representatives that are giving us guidance on an every other week basis. We are meeting with the Zero Waste Committee, and they are advising us about about kind of like as project managers. The advisory committee is a little different. It's an advisory committee. It will not be making any decisions about the plan, but it will be, we're considering it the host of our program, right? So we want that to be very broad-based. We want the advisory committee to be very broad-based and representative of the community. There are certain positions that are required by Act 101 by state law. And then there are some positions where we're thinking, it might be nice to have those folks on board as an official advisory committee member. And we can go back to this when you get to your questions, but here were the ones that were required by state law, the townships of different classes, industry, meaning business representatives, private solid waste industry, private recycling industry, and the county recycling coordinator. And then the desired representatives that we would add on and recruit for would include the environmental justice organizations, school or university representative, reuse business, recycling organization, compost organization, recycling market development, faith community, county staff, solid waste authority, and the DEP staff. So keeping going, keeping things quick here. Here's what we're articulating as being the advisory.
We are ahead of schedule, so you don't have to rush. We're ahead of schedule. So.
Okay, no problem, no problem. So I can't see if hands are raised or if folks have questions. So if you wouldn't mind letting me know if you want me to stop, I can do that. But I thought we would go through the whole thing and then go back for questions. What would you prefer? Are there any hands raised, or is anybody?
No, you can continue until the end and then we'll have questions at the end.
Awesome. Okay, great. All right, so back to the advisory committee role. Again, under state law, it's pretty straightforward. The advisory committee is just going to review the plan and make suggestions and propose any changes. What we are proposing the advisory committee role be for this process to be more of our, our convener. So they will help us with the agenda building for the 3 public meetings. They will help us with drafting up the preliminary draft goals and guiding principles, the discussion of zero waste initiatives for public input, and then they would review the draft plan elements. We would then take their advice under consideration, propose it, get vetting through the public meetings. And then another role that we would like the advisory committee to take on is to encourage participation from their constituencies that they're representing. So if it's a reuse business organization, we would like he or she to encourage all the other reuse businesses in town to come, or in the county, to come to the meetings and provide input. If it's a university representative, same thing. School representative, get the word out. We would like school representatives to come to our public meetings. So that is, an ask of the advisory committee. And then they would be the sort of titular host. They would be actually hosted by the county, but we would like the advisory committee to feel as though they are hosting these meetings and therefore, supporting encouraging the public participation. We would ask them to come to the public hearing, of course, and participate in the county commission meeting down the road. But essentially that's the role that we would be asking for the advisory committee, and that totals 8 meetings. And then lastly, I just wanted to check in with you all on where we are on the schedule. We are on track. We've put off the first public meeting by a month or so, just because we wanted to catch up with the advisory committee role. It was the advice of the Zero Waste Committee discussion to bring those folks on board before we
do have some hands raised now, if you wouldn't mind taking a question or two.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, because since they raised their hand, I don't want to ignore it.
Yeah, no problem. Do you want to just sort of call on them and shout that out?
Yeah, Laura, do you have a question?
Yes, it's actually 2-part. First one is that we have, you clearly have breadth and depth of experience with performing this task, but how do you address municipalities that may not be as sophisticated as others in terms of considering sustainability and solid waste measures? And then second to that, we even have some municipalities where we have sophisticated managers, but perhaps populations are not focused in on zero waste or even recycling for that matter. So is there any public education and outreach associated with this plan, or how do you engage those populations that are not focused in on zero waste? And how do you engage municipalities that are maybe not as sophisticated as others on this subject?
Sure. So, the county RFP used, sustainable materials management and zero waste language in the RFP, but we don't necessarily think that everybody in the county knows exactly what that means or how to wrap their arms around it. So absolutely, we would not be starting at, 60 miles an hour. So we would definitely want us particularly to get guidance from the advisory committee members, the zero waste committee members, your ideas, and also through these one-on-one discussions and these listening sessions to find out, where are folks in terms of, recycling participation. The municipalities are by and large providing those collection services, through their callers, et cetera. So where are they on that? Some municipalities are doing compost collection. What is the appetite for expanding that in some of the other municipalities? What is the county role in helping with regards to infrastructure investment or something like that? So, whereas, some of the things that we talk about in zero waste circles, producer responsibility, I don't know, that some things might be a little bit jargony and not familiar to your average resident or business in the county. Mostly what we'll be talking about, the things that they already know and already do, because folks recycle every day, right? Folks put out the trash every week. So unlike some issues in sustainability, recycling, composting, waste prevention, these are very visceral. These are things that people are doing all the time. And so that's one of the reasons I like this field, is it because it provides, that we can't all do fuel switching, going all electric or all, that might be out of our bounds, but we can all recycle and compost better. So I think that it would be our intention to meet the community where they are. So if there are municipalities that are at a very sophisticated level and want to do a lot more, we would want to support them in through this planning process and help them identify the next steps for their recycling, waste prevention, composting infrastructure, right? If there are municipalities that don't know, just give me the basics. What do I have to do under state law? That's fine too, but we can at least give them some support. And every town will have constituencies of people who care very deeply about this because they pay the garbage bills, or they, don't have the services that they want, or they would like to be able to, repair their lawnmower, whatever it is. So those are the kinds of things that we don't know yet, because we don't know you probably know more than we do, where people are and what they feel like they might want. But that's the goal of the planning process, is to bring them forward, bring their ideas forward, not get too far ahead of them, but make sure that the plan reflects their values and their goals and the things that they would like to see in the future. Does that answer your question?
It does very well. I like the fact, what was that phrase? I'm sorry, my Mastiff is sort of going haywire in the background, feeling that he hasn't had enough attention this week, but it was something to the effect of meeting people where they are to make sure that they're included in this process, I believe is what I liked hearing from you. So that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no point in engaging with folks if they feel intimidated, or they're not getting it, or it's not something that they understand. But we've done a lot of public outreach meetings for planning processes across the country, and people have feelings about recycling and trash, believe it or not. So is there another question?
Does anyone have a question? and then Ruth can continue though, and you can ask later as well. Okay, yeah, please continue.
Okay, I think the only other thing that I was going to go over in terms of the slides, and then I thought we could go back and talk a little bit more about the planning process for recruiting the advisory committee, was just where we are on the overall schedule. So where we are on the overall schedule, let's see, that's here. And I just wanted to let you know, we did have an early task, which was to evaluate scenarios for long-term waste disposal. We have a preliminary draft memo that we have provided to Francine and to Jim at the authority, and we'll be kind of reviewing that internally with staff before we kind of circulate that around and say we're done with that task. But we did complete an evaluation of alternatives, and there are alternatives. There's alternatives exist. So that was our conclusion. And then, but you'll hear about that more when we circulate that around. And then we talked about this task 1.2 is primarily that outreach task. It's under developed goals based on county input, but it includes the whole public outreach process. We've started task 2, which is our solid waste facility inventory. We've expanded that to include a gap analysis. So in addition to the solid waste facilities, the recycling, processing, landfills, waste to energy facilities, et cetera, we would be identifying. We would also be looking at, reuse facilities, other types of things, where if you have something, what do you do with it? You want to discard a, whatever it is, food, toaster, where do we donate? Where do we, food rescue? I don't know. So our team that's looking at that is looking very broadly, both what's required by state law and then any discard in the system. What are we going to do with it? Is there a place for everything in the county or in the region? That's the solid waste facility inventory. We have the waste quantities and projections underway. So we have done an initial analysis of that for the county, what we expect to happen over the 10-year planning period. And I was just touching on the fact that we do need to conduct this survey of the 49 municipalities. And we really need the municipalities to be essentially involved in this plan because they provide both the collection infrastructure for their residents, but it's,
we do have a question. I'm sorry. We have another question, Ruth. Steve Clark.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, Ruth. I'm sorry if I missed it in the section at the top, develop goals. Is that something that is largely done or is that ongoing? Sorry if I missed that.
I glossed over that a little bit because it includes we put the whole public outreach process under that task. So that task called develop goals based on county input is a focus of the March meeting. In fact, it's actually listed there. Goals and guiding principles March. That is the focus of the March advisory committee and the public meeting. And then we have a couple of more public meetings that we've squeezed into that task, but the whole outreach process related to the planning process is squeezed in there under 1.3.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. And just, these other ones are not quite underway. The waste management activity analysis, that's essentially what we were using the shorthand zero waste initiatives focus of the March meeting. The April meeting. So that zero waste initiatives meeting is essentially to review the task for waste management activities. So nomenclature wise, we'll get some feedback from you, from the zero waste committee and everybody else about what we should be calling these activities. Zero waste management activities is a placeholder, or zero waste initiatives is a placeholder for the strategies and tactics that we'll be reviewing for the plan. Strategic analysis is evaluating all that based on public meeting and advisory committee, commission input, authority input, and then the solid waste management plan preparation, as you can see, is a little bit down the road, but we are hoping to have that well in hand so that we can start circulating in June. The idea is to catch up with the sustainability planning process and to basically have a fall acceptance of the plan, in that August, September, and if we're in a 90-day public input period, may extend to that October, November timeframe. But that's the idea, is to catch up with the sustainability plan and to have this all come back to the county council for for acceptance. So did folks want to go back at all and talk about the advisory committee? We had proposed a process for Francine, and she is working on that with the county staff that would then announce the solicitation and go about through the recruitment process. Our goal is to have the, if possible, and this is based on county staff input, but our goal would be to have the application.
Excuse me, it looks like Steve Clark has another question.
Sure.
Steve, do you have another question?
I'm sorry. In your on your previous slide we're just on, the life cycle analysis, presumably there'll be multiple life cycle analysis, like for burning waste, for, that's a plural, right?
Yeah, so there are a bunch of scenarios in that task.
Yes.
We have on our team Jeff Morris, who's the guru of life cycle analysis. He's based out of Seattle, Washington, and he will give us any number of life cycle analyses for the different configurations of the different possibilities. But that's the idea. The idea would be under a waste reduction. The ideal scenario is that we are going to reduce our waste, right? No, we're not just going to manage it. We're actually going to reduce it. So, we'll have scenarios under reduction and then different different recycling and composting, evaluations, disposal, landfill options, whatever, waste energy. So there would be a number of different scenarios under that. Yeah.
Okay, so specifically the Covanta process, there will be some life cycle analysis for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Although we do have in our task 1.3, 1.2, evaluate scenarios for long-term waste disposal. Some consideration of external costs outside of just pure economics. Can we afford to go to a landfill? Can we afford to just, expand our landfill and put trash there? So that is something that Jeff is poised to give us kind of a generic, just because the authority and the county are having short-term decisions that are happening right now, based on generic composition of trash, not necessarily Delaware County specific, based on the tonnage amounts in Delaware County, based on, different life cycle inputs. Jeff is prepared to give us a little shorthand, life cycle analysis just based on A or B or C, just everything static, but that. The idea of this task 3.4 will be really more detailed based on the policies and programs and infrastructure that we're actually evaluating for the plan. So there's this little short-term snippet that we're poised to prepare. And then there's this longer term snippet a little bit down the line once we're really evaluating all of the different waste reduction and recycling and composting scenarios, because that changes the composition, if you follow me. So, Jeff can tell us, well, if you just generically cut waste by 10%, here you go. But, we would be doing a little bit more of a sophisticated analysis. We're going to be target textiles, or we're going to target food, or et cetera, et cetera. And that changes the composition, and therefore that changes the life cycle. Does that answer your question? Okay, awesome.
I have actually a question for Francine. If we have a question from the public, that gets addressed during public comment, is that correct?
Yes, if it's in the email.
Okay, but what if someone sends it through the chat?
We can definitely answer the question that's in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it looks like Joan Broadfield has a question.
Yes. First of all, hi, Joan, because I know Joan, but she actually says external costs. With Covanta, will costs include wellness and health costs due to pollution?
Yeah, that's some of what Jeff will include in his life cycle, would be, those externalized impacts other than, the traditional ones that one looks at. So, well, in fact, while we're talking, I can kind of look up and show you. In our proposal, we did a little bit of a comparison of different types of life cycle analyses. And so since that's of some interest to folks on the commission and folks in the public, I can look that up while we answer some more questions. Are there any other questions? No other questions?
I don't see any other hand raised.
Okay. Well, let me
So
just,
I'll
yeah,
just
go ahead.
hop in. Just in the chat, David had said something and I responded, but when you went back to your stakeholder slide, basically, I didn't see it in there. We have the first class municipality, second class municipality as required participants. And then I think in our smaller meeting, we had discussed adding Chester City by specifically adding, I believe it's a third class city is the characterization. I didn't see that on your slide, so I just wanted to make sure that that did make it into the additional stakeholder.
We added that to the slide, so we can
okay.
go back.
I must have missed it. I apologize.
Yeah, we did add that to the slide, and we put it under a required because my rereading of the statute, and I could be wrong, but it doesn't really matter because we're going to recruit for that anyway, was that you should include all the classes of municipalities that you have. So if you have a third class city, that should be a requirement of including that. We had gone on what was in the representation from the last round. I don't know. In any case, third class city is on there. So I just want to make sure that you, we'll go back to that in a minute. I just wanted to show you this one thing, if you bear with me, because I thought it was interesting. Folks were interested in it, but let me just take a quick look at this. Sharing now. This is from our scope of work. Essentially what we did is we compared 3 major life cycle analysis tools. So there's WARM, which is the EPA waste assessment reduction model tool. There's MSW DST, and then there's MEB Calc. MEB Calc is Jeff's. So Jeff is the one that has all the checks next to his. And what it addresses in the life cycle analysis that he'll prepare for us is climate change, human health, respiratory, human health, toxic chemicals, human health carcinogens, eutrophication, yes, acidification, ecotoxicity, ozone depletion, smog formation, monetized environmental score. So a little bit out of my league here in explaining what all of those things are. And if you're super interested, of course, we will bring Jeff to a commission meeting when you can ask him all the things that you want to ask him. But I did want to show you what his life cycle tool that he's published and is used across the country addresses. Is that okay? Anything else on that, on life cycle?
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, was there anything else you wanted to mention, Ruth?
I did want to just talk about the recruitment of the advisory committee because we would like to lean on the commission a little bit to get the word out. So depending on the feedback that Francine gets from the county staff about timing and appointment process, we would really like to get the advisory committee on board in February so that we can have them first meeting with them in early March. And so we would, if we were able to get that solicitation out next week-ish and can get the word out and encourage you all, and we'll use all of our channels and outlets, and we did talk in the Zero Waste Committee about what those outlets could be to get folks to apply, and then and hopefully fill all those slots, those desired slots of representation over and above what's required by state law. So we would like to get those folks on board in early February, have their first meeting in March, and they will be running because we have the meeting in March, April, May, and we're going to have a draft plan, by the end of May. So that was really all I intended to present, unless anybody has any questions.
Thanks, Ruth. Crystal said that she can help you with that, and Steve Clark put in a definition of eutrophication.
Thank you, and the pronunciation. Thank you, Steve.
Okay. Any other questions for Ruth? Okay. Thank you, Ruth. I'll go back to sharing my screen. Next is a presentation by the Bryn Mawr students. So if you could introduce yourselves again too, please, that would be wonderful.
We also have the professors here also. Dr. Danae.
Oh, great. Yeah, if you can all introduce yourselves, that would be wonderful before you start your presentation.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Sachin Xiao. I'm a junior at Bryn Mawr College.
Hi, everyone. I am Estefania Torres, and I am also a junior at Bryn Mawr College.
And
Victor Dane, I'm a math professor at Bryn Mawr College, and I'll be supervising the students in their work this semester. I teach a course on math modeling and sustainability where students do projects in the community analyzing sustainability issues. So this type of work they're doing relates to that.
Yeah, and I'm Don Barber. I was working with Sechan and Estefania last semester at Bryn Mawr College.
I also want to add that we do have the folks from the county who are also working with the students. Julie and Rebecca, do you want to say hello?
Sure. Hi, I'm Rebecca Ross with Delaware County Planning Department. And Julie and I have recently started working with the students, helping them to continue this project, which they've been working on for at least one semester.
Yes, I'm Julie Del Muto. I'm the JS manager at the county, and I'm with Rebecca, going to help with the ladies and to the semester. And we're hoping that we can wrap in some of the sustainability plan initiatives into their workload this year and continue the outreach they've been doing to the municipalities. With that, ladies.
All right. I'm not sure if Saichan has access to be able to present and
yeah,
share.
I can share the screen.
All right.
Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So today we are generally going to introduce the greenhouse gas inventory we generated from the last semester and also the outreach project we did during the past few months.
Yeah. And so to get started, we wanted to include some of our background information. I will be looking at some of my notes to the side, so in case I'm not looking at the screen. And we've been working with ICLEI in partnership with Delaware County. ICLEI was the program, it's the program that assigned us Delaware County, and ICLEI also assigned us to work with ClearPath. And ClearPath, essentially, we put in the information, the data information that we received from both PECO, the energy company in Philadelphia, as well as Google EIE or Google Environmental Insights Explorer. And we use that data, input that into ClearPath after calculating a little bit, and we receive a couple of charts that help us analyze how much CO2 output Philadelphia has had, and we'll be showing you guys our information shortly. And the three, you go back. Thank you. And then the three main sources of data that we received were residential, commercial, and industrial, and transportation. And one small note that I wanted to talk about, because I think it is essential, because we are working with Delaware County, is that within the information that we received from Google EIE, it does not include the CO2 emissions from aircrafts or airplanes. And I think that's important to note, just because it would probably increase the CO2 emissions that Philadelphia has, because we do have the airport within Delaware County.
Yeah, and for scope of this inventory, it covers the area within the jurisdiction of Delaware County, and for the year 2019, due to the COVID condition. And as shown in this graph, the inventory covers both the scope 2 and scope 1 and partially of the scope 3. And the scope actually mainly depends on the data provided by PECO and by Google EIE. So if any of you want to know the specific methodology, I can send you the document. Our email will be presented at the end.
So up next, we will be presenting the information that we received after inputting the data. So as you can see, there is a huge difference between natural gas CO2 emissions as well as electricity CO2 emissions. And that'll be a consistent pattern throughout most of the charts. And so this is the residential energy CO2 output, and this is the commercial and industrial energy output, again, with natural gas being pretty low in comparison to electricity. And one of the things that I wanted to know in within all of our data is there's seems to be a huge percentage of these emissions that come from commercial energy, as you can see in the pie chart to the right. And lastly, we have the transportation output. Again, huge difference between these two CO2 emitters.
Yeah, and we will use this chart in the later climate action plan, and also we will do a forecast to all the data to see what we will have to the 2050. And so in the next part, we will present what we have completed and generated from the outreach project. And so the whole thing started at the end of October and ran. We mainly focus on two kinds of stakeholders. One is EAC and NGOs, and the second is all 49 municipalities within Delaware County. And during within the 3 months, we have sent out above 200 emails, including 3 rounds of follow-up to those who didn't reply. However, like all the valid responses we get are approximately 1/3. Especially for the municipality, we only have 15 contacts, like for the sustainability initiative. So if anyone have opportunity to make a contact with certain municipality, you can like contact us, and we will be greatly appreciative for this.
Yes, and briefly, I want to mention that at the end of our presentation, we will include our 2 email addresses.
Yeah.
So out of all the municipalities that we reached out to, we received 6 responses from the following municipalities. And I also want to note that the way that the surveys were structured, it was over a Zoom call, and we had to consider our own personal schedules in terms of like our classes, because we are still college students and we're juniors, so we're pretty busy, as well as their own schedules. So because of that, it made it a little bit more difficult to schedule in these Zoom calls. They were brief for 30 minutes. And yeah, so even though we had minimal responses, we still got a lot of information inputted. And in the next couple of slides, we're going to show you the questions that we asked and then the responses that we received. So the first one is on a scale of 1 to 4, how much of a priority is sustainability to the municipality? And most responded with a high priority. All right. Does the municipality have a sustainability or climate action plan? Most of the municipalities did not have one, except for Haverford Township, who did have one. And then, does your community have an environmental action committee? Most did. And from the people that were able to or are able to have an environmental action committee, we asked them, if so, do you feel like you have a good relationship with your EAC? Are they effective partners to propose and help implement sustainability and climate initiatives? And for the NA, it was a mixed answer of both yes and no. So that's why we established that.
And in the next question, we asked the municipality, how did they raise the current level of understanding and knowledge of sustainability within the municipal staff and elected officials? The answer ranged from low to good, and the majority will say like average. And according to the question, I highlighted a quote from our interview with Lansdowne Borough, and the mentor said the knowledge of sustainability is more solid, but the extent to which they have an emergency is going to vary. Like there can be some resistance to putting things to a priority at that point. And I quote this sentence because I feel it's kind of reflect there probably will be a gap between awareness and action according to sustainability initiatives. And we asked the same question, that how would they raise the broader community's current levels, understanding of knowledge and sustainability. And the answer goes to average and good. One of the municipality didn't answer this question because they feel it's hard to approximate a figure for the whole community. And we also asked what would be the most effective way to learn about sustainability initiatives or successful stories from other municipalities or at the county level. And newsletters and municipal call stands out from all the choices. For example, as interview with Haverford Township, the manager mentioned if there can be some kind of regular meeting among all municipalities to share what people are doing, that will be pretty helpful. And also, we asked people to evaluate their level of concern according to the effect of climate change. And the number above each bar shows the count of answers for each level of concern within that specific climate effect. And the biggest concern goes to flooding or stormwater management, and impacts to private property, public infrastructure, and natural system comes later.
All right, and then our next question is, what do you see as the main benefits of local sustainability initiatives? Rank the benefits from most important to least important, and the average was fiscal savings and economic development. The next question is, how are you funding current sustainability initiatives? And it seems like a lot of the municipalities received grants either by the state, local, or use their municipal general funds in order to take these sustainability initiatives. And our last question was, what are the biggest obstacles to developing and implementing sustainability initiatives? And a huge obstacle for the people that we were able to interview were the staff time and funding. And that is our survey. It definitely taught us a lot about outreach practices and what we will be doing in the next couple of steps. So instead of having a Zoom call and having to schedule those meetings with municipalities, both Sai-Chen and I agreed that it would be better for us to send out a survey, and that way we can respect the municipalities as well as be able to receive more responses hopefully in the future.
Yeah, and thank you for watching our presentation. And if you would like to contact us, feel free to reach out via our email.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that presentation. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, well,
We'd just like to thank them for the time and effort they put into this report. It was thorough and informative and will be very helpful.
Yes, thank you, Crystal. Yes, for sure. Oh, we do have, oh, wait a second. I just have another question for Francine. So we only allow people from the public to speak during the public comment period. Is that correct too, Francine?
I think if it's manageable, we could have a question asked by the public right now.
Okay, someone did have a question raised. Hold on, let me see who that was. I think it was Joan. Yeah, Joan has a question. So Joan, would you like to answer your question?
I was noticing in one of the slides, it looked like there were 80 something municipalities when there are only 40 some. And I was just curious where that number came from. And I'm fine to email folks, but could you put the email in the chat because I didn't copy the screen fast enough. Thank you.
Yes, of course. I'll include the email in the chat.
And I was wondering, did you want to answer her question about the number of municipalities? I didn't quite catch that.
Right. So we were working with another member of the Delaware County, and she had provided us with that number of municipalities. So that's what we worked with. we're not sure if those numbers have changed due to COVID or.
The thing that was confusing is the slide had 89 municipalities, but then later down below it had more the number that I was aware of, and that was in the 40s. So that was to me.
Sorry, it may be confusing. The 89 are only the email we send out because like some of them didn't reply at the first round of outreach, so we follow up.
I think that it was like all the emails they sent out during that period, how much outreach they did.
Yeah.
So in the next phase, Rebecca and I are hoping to give them better contacts and to come up with a way that's a little bit easier than them spending 30 minutes on the phone and using different tools for that.
Yes, and
I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say again, as far as Steve had asked about the next steps for the project, as Julie said, they're going to continue with some of that municipal outreach, but also the ICLEI organization has sort of a prescribed process for the completion of this total survey of the greenhouse gas information and synthesis of all the data. So they'll be working on that through the conclusion of their semester, which will be something that will feed into what you all are developing with the sustainability plan. And so we'll have hopefully periodic updates. And I think this completes a process of having a total report of a local climate action plan coming out of the work the students are doing.
Okay, Steve Clark has a question. What are the next steps?
I think she answered that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions? All right, thank you so much for your presentation again. I'll share my screen so we can go to the next item on the agenda. Oh, is there another question? Let's see.
This is Don Barber. I'm not sure whether you all can hear me, but I just wanted to, well, thank the students for the nice presentation, but I noticed that climate address climate resilience or mitigate climate change was ranked as the lowest priority for the municipalities, and it was seen as the least important outcomes of the work. And so it just seems that it'll be important to interrogate that, given that the local climate action plan essentially places that as the highest priority, whereas the municipalities saw that as one of the least important components. So it's not really a question. I just wanted to call attention to that particular part of the survey. Thank you.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Let's see.
I think Becca has a point or a question.
Oh, Rebecca, yes, please.
Sure. So I just wanted to, I guess, offer some perspective as one of the respondents in the survey for municipalities. First, I would just like to thank the students. It was great working with you both in this presentation and hearing your outcomes, as well as speaking with you regarding the questions. Unfortunately, I think that the reason climate is so low, I know for my municipality specifically is not because it lacks importance. It's unfortunately not a requirement. So some of the other priorities that fell much higher in the list, like stormwater management, were required to monitor and provide money toward because of state and federal regulations. As for climate change, because it hasn't largely been at the forefront, and because people unfortunately are not required to really pay attention to it, I think that's kind of why it's fallen to the wayside. I also know that, again, just because it's not a requirement, I think a lot of municipalities have not yet started conversations about sustainability practices or about climate change. I know I was the municipality that was not able to respond to the question about sustainability just because it's never been a community-wide conversation yet. So I think in seeing these, it's a great way to kind of gauge not only where the knowledge is, but also have people started having these conversations yet as a community wide as well. So I just wanted to offer that perspective.
Okay, thank you, Becca. Let's see if there are any other questions in here. Yeah.
Excuse me. Becca or Carol, I guess I'd like to just point out that that's not necessarily a problem in that, cost is a very effective lever for getting action. And so as somebody noted, municipal staff is under a lot of pressure to keep within their budgets. And so I think that we really need to emphasize the ways that sustainable practices can reduce costs and make sure that that is in fact so for the communities. Include aspects of our plan that will make that possible for communities, and we will be much more successful at actually implementing the plan.
David, that's a great point, and that's why I think that's one of the guiding themes throughout our sustainability plan is economic development, ensuring that throughout the year when we develop this plan and once we implement, we want to be able to demonstrate those cost savings from our greenhouse gas emission reduction strategies, which would involve energy reduction strategies and EVs. So I hope that we can demonstrate those savings that will encourage folks to realize the importance that the sustainability actually does reduce costs.
Does anyone have any other questions?
First of all, I'd like to disagree with both of your statements. A lot of the things that we're going to have to do to keep the world within 1.5 degree elevation, we're already at 1.3, will actually cost us a significant amount of money. And the idea that we have, you can make money or save through sustainability, I think is a huge mistake. One example is replacing fossil fuel heating with cheap natural gas with heat pumps. That is going to be very costly, but it's also going to be essential to prevent runaway greenhouse emissions.
That's true, but there's a return on investment for these things. So there will be money needed to put in, but there will be a return on that investment according to a lot of the information that we have for energy savings anyway. And also, if you look at the health benefits, there's that whole socioeconomic piece that's related to when we reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we improve the environment, which will then impact health of communities,
Correct.
Which will reduce a lot of resulting health issues that impact poverty. And so there's a ton of connections with
right. But many organizations and municipalities are only focused on short-term finances, and so those are medium, longish term. So I just think a lot of, we're making a mistake if you're going to say you're going to save money to get to where we need to go.
I think it depends a lot on what kind of financing we get from the federal government. It's a question of whose money is it, and to the degree that we are able to get good support from the federal government. That does ease the burden on local communities because they're not the ones who are fronting the money, but will be getting the savings.
Okay, I see we have a lot of discussion through the chat, but we are now behind schedule. So unless we have any other questions for the Bryn Mawr students, I think we can still be engaged in the chat, but we should continue with the agenda. Unless there are other like just burning questions for the students. Okay, thank you for that. Is there any public comment?
I don't have anything from today. Actually, there is public comment from this morning, and it's not related to the conversation, but it's from Kristen Giambra, owner and founder of Rockstar Compost. She's offering her services to assist with Delaware County Sustainability Commission on talking about zero waste efforts. So she's offering that, and I will maybe connect. It's nice to have an offer of support.
All right, great idea. Okay. Next item on the agenda is Sustainability Symposium discussion. Francine, if you wanted to kick that off.
Okay, I'd like to share my screen for a moment, please.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So this is a fun topic that I'm going to kind of breeze through because we have so many issues that we would like to talk about. And so there is the opportunity to possibly get together in person if COVID allows. And so the concept of a sustainability symposium. So through the lens of the county's 5 sustainability focus areas, bringing together sustainability stakeholders at an event, a symposium, where we share expert knowledge from speakers and workshops, and then discuss strategies for collaboration, action, outcomes, and future. And the venue we were thinking about is Subaru Park in Chester, where the Philadelphia Union plays. The date, April 21st. I've already connected with Subaru Park folks, and they have said that date is available for us. Full day event, audience, everyone, anyone who's interested from Delaware County and beyond. EACs, interested residents, nonprofits, municipalities, local businesses, students. Cost would be free. We'd want to pre-register because we'd like to be able to provide food. And we would have our public relations or communications director and myself kind of MC this and facilitate with the support of our Sustainability Commission members and volunteers. So this is an idea. And so this would be a potential itinerary, having a keynote speaker, having then breakout sessions or other speakers talk about the 5 focus areas, health and wellness, perhaps have our public health director, who is brand new to Delaware County, talk about how we formed a health department, why we did it, and what our potential outcomes are looking like. Looking at transportation as one of our focus areas, and potentially inviting folks such as this individual who I actually just went to a webinar and listened to, Eve Lucan's Day, Global Warming Solutions Associated Environment America on EV Toolkit for local governments, the resources available. Energy, having our energy consultant for the county that helps us procure energy talk about our energy procurement strategies and how we can do better with our clean energy. And talking to Montgomery, Chester, Bucks counties, and maybe asking them to talk and chat about things. And then having the natural resources focus area, maybe talk to a conservation district, Ed McGargy's folks about the work they're doing, our Penn State extension of Delaware County, and maybe the PA Resources Council. These are just ideas, and I'd like to get more feedback from everybody here. And waste and resource management. I'd love to have maybe Media Borough be a speaker and talk about what they've done with their residential composting program, which is extremely wonderful. We'd love to be able to have that everywhere if we had the infrastructure, which we hope to try to get at some point. And maybe Aero Aggregates, who is a glass recycling company, have talk about their story. Climate resiliency, focus on resiliency, Chester City. Maybe have a presentation from the Delaware County Historical Society about the 1724 Chester Courthouse, which is pretty awesome that it still exists and is in place, and why that matters to sustainability in Delaware County. Having a breakout session to walk through the Subaru Center, which has some pretty cool green sustainability features. They have a community garden. The Pennsylvania Horticultural Society organizes volunteer work, and they donate all of the food to local food banks. And perhaps have a closing speaker, such as a council member, maybe Council Member Schaefer, if she's willing, to talk about planning for the future. Actions moving forward. These are the things we'd have to do in a very short amount of time. And we have Pippa Barrett, who was our sustainability intern over the summer, who was extremely good at this type of work, and bringing her on to help us to develop our itinerary of speakers, breakout sessions, put it together, get folks involved, recruit partners to help with funding, because there is a cost associated with this, reaching out to speakers to get commitments, working with the venue to get everything organized, and Carol has really emphasized, and Jacqueline, we want to make sure this is a sustainable event. We would like it to be vegan. We'd like it to be zero waste. We would like it to have active transport possibilities. We want to have public transportation access. And I know that's difficult right now. And we want to actually have SEPTA potentially change up and give us the opportunity to have public transportation for the event. We'd work with our IT department to get registration. We'd want to promote the event. And so it could be pretty fun. And that's that piece. There's more to talk about in a short time period, but just wondering what people's thoughts are on that.
I think that's a fantastic idea. That's really creative and and ambitious too. I think that yeah, it's fantastic. I encourage you to keep moving forward.
All right, cool. I think it could be a lot of fun, and we could also have a lot of connected dots come together. We need to have partnerships to move our sustainability efforts forward so that we can have actions that lead up to our goals and targets. So, all right, I'll keep moving on that, and I will share updates with you and try to get your feedback through emails for the Sustainability Commission to make sure that we're going in alignment with what our beliefs are as a commission.
Okay, thank you, Francine. We had another interactive question, but we're a little bit behind schedule. Did you still want to do that, Francine, or just move on?
I think we better move on.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. All right, I'll share my screen and let's see. EAC engagement is next, Francine.
All right, I'm going to share my screen again.
Oops, okay.
And actually, I'm going to skip to the next item, which is our sustainability plan update. The EAC piece I'm going to touch on briefly.
Sure.
So the EAC piece means we're trying to get in contact with all of the folks out there, all the 49 municipalities, and our students from Bryn Mawr are working on that. So I think that we have the venue by which we can get, or the conduit by which we can get the word out and communicate and connect the dots with the EACs, because they're really important. So I don't have a really great strategy other than right now working with our students on getting the word out and having other ways to communicate rather than trying to do a Zoom call. As Julie said, we're going to try to have more efficient ways to make that contact and connection. But I wanted to give a sustainability plan update. So our sustainability plan, these are the things we'd like to complete this year. We want to complete the benchmarking of metrics data. Our students today provided the greenhouse gas emissions from the communities in Delaware County. We also have a presentation that we would like to share with you on county operations greenhouse gas emissions. I'm going to share that at the next meeting. It's pretty intense, lot of data and very good information that we can use as our benchmarking data for greenhouse gas emissions from the Delaware County operations. We're going to continue with our public engagement, once again, EAC connections and communities throughout Delaware County. We're going to establish our sustainability goals, metrics, and actions, finalize the plan in September and launch it. And then thereafter, evaluate progress and report on results on an annual basis. So this is a general sustainability survey that was shared with everybody for quite a while, a few months. I think it was actually on our website. We had a great number of responses. This is Dr. Sharon Jay. When she was with us, she organized this, and we got 651 respondents, which was pretty impressive. And here's the breakdown of who responded. As you can see, Media was a big response, Springfield, Nether Province, Haverford, Upper Province. So this is the breakdown of the municipalities, how many people actually responded. Slide. And so the general public survey results, these are basically asking the public about their general understanding and beliefs and opinions about sustainability. The age bracket of the folks who responded, greater than 65, was the largest turnout, 55 to 64, second largest, 45 to 54, and then 35 to 44, largest turnout. Okay, so. And as we can see here that the racial turnout, the number of folks who participated were primarily white or Caucasian. So almost 90% of the respondents were white or Caucasian, which is telling us that we have a problem. We need to really try to get the word out to all of our communities so that we can get responses that make sense for us. We shouldn't have that 3% of our respondents were African American. So we have to do a better job with that, clearly. How concerned are you about the impacts of climate change? So this is funny because we have most of the respondents from residents as a great deal. So they care a lot about climate change. The students, when they did their survey, that was not the case, but that was talking to municipal government. And what we talked about was the reason why for that is staff. They don't have time, they don't have regulatory requirements, and there's not a lot of funding. Do you feel that climate change has already adversely impacted the quality of life in Delaware County? Moderate amount, most people thought. A lot. Second, a great deal. So as we can see, people in Delaware County who responded to this feel as though climate change is adversely impacting the quality of life. Which climate change hazards do you feel have the greatest impact on Delaware County today or will in the future? Flooding or sea level rising was number one. And that's very evident with a lot of the flooding we have seen. I mean, if we all remember the 676 or the Vine Street Expressway in Philadelphia was literally a lake. I don't think I can ever forget that image that recently occurred. Excessive heat, it's hotter. The weather is definitely hotter and more humid. That's the second greatest impact that people are worried about. And also greater impacts for historically marginalized communities. That means our most vulnerable populations, our socially and economically disadvantaged communities, communities of color, our aged communities, seniors, pregnant women, and folks who have health issues. They're the folks who are going to be impacted the greatest. So how important is it for Delaware County to work with municipalities, employers, and residents to take action on climate change or improve sustainability? These folks think so. So it's extremely important. And so this is which sustainability issues are most important to you. And we have three at the top: natural resources, so parks, green space conservation efforts, then followed by climate resiliency, meaning reducing our emissions, preparing for the effects of climate change, and third, solid waste management. And so happy to see that solid waste management is in the top three because that is a major initiative we're working on right now. The fourth was energy, efficiency efforts and renewables, followed by health and wellness and equity, inclusion, transportation, economic growth. So how do you most likely receive environmental sustainability information? So this is from residents and folks like traditional news at the top, newspapers, TV, etc. Social media was number 2 and search engines were number 3. And so we also did high-level goal feedback. We actually did an in-person workshop where we had about 10 participants. And so we had public feedback form. So there was also an online survey. We had staff members at our government center who filled out posters and then the public workshop. And these were the 3 questions. What do you think of the goals? Are we missing anything? And what would you prioritize? And so just as a very brief, we're going to have the subcommittees that are going to discuss each one of these focus areas in the future. But this is a breakdown of our results. Number 1, the respondents said that we want to, number 1, ensure a sustainable, local, safe, and healthy food supply that is accessible to everybody and supported by the community. So this is in the focus area of health and wellness goals. The second item was the expand community education and engagement on sustainability practices that will help residents live green lifestyles and save money. And then there was a tie between number 3, reduce the use of potentially hazardous chemicals, biological and particle contaminants, to improve indoor air quality, and the other tie was improve the overall health and well-being of all county employees, residents, and visitors. So in the focus area of health and wellness goals, these were the top, actually 4 goals. For natural resources, number 1, encourage zoning improvements, regional collaboration, and reuse of commercialized spaces as opposed to new development in undeveloped spaces. So in other words, we want to keep our undeveloped spaces preserved. Number 2 is improve stormwater management and install green infrastructure to reduce the runoff. And that makes sense because one of the concerns we had was flooding. And the third was protect, restore, and expand the aquatic and land ecosystem. For transportation, the high-level goals that we saw as the most responded to was number 1, promote policies, programs, and infrastructure investments that prioritize multimodal, clean, efficient transportation options throughout the county. And it's good because our infrastructure money is definitely, if we get it, we're applying for federal funding that will help that. The second goal was reduce emissions from vehicles, promote electric vehicles, clean fuels, and improve access to electric vehicle charging stations. Also another one of our priorities in our sustainability plan and the work we're doing already. And 3, expand safe connected infrastructure for walking and cycling, so active transport, and connect our neighborhoods and our schools and commercial centers. For energy, the number 1 item for a goal was increased percentage of renewable energy provided on and off site to buildings and properties, such as solar panels and a solar field, maybe in Delaware County, Number 2, reduce energy use in buildings and properties within the county. And 3, encourage modernization of electrical grid for improved efficiency and resilience. And then next time when I come back to you again, I'm going to share with you the greenhouse gas inventory of county operations, which is similar to what the students shared regarding the county as a community. Thank you so much for listening.
Wow, I thought that was really great. Does anyone have any questions for Francine?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jacqueline.
You said we've talked about this before about setting up, I guess, subgroups for each of the high-level goals. Is that still the plan?
Yes. So we want to have subcommittees for each of those 5 focus areas with those high-level goals. And the purpose of the subcommittees is to develop targets, looking at all the metrics that we have been gathering, benchmarking. So developing targets for reduction or improvement, and then coming up with the actions needed to attain those targets. And that's why these subcommittees are important to have sustainability commission members, but also recruit members of our community that can assist us in attaining these goals through their actions, in-kind donations, contributions of sorts. So yeah, that's a yes, Jacqueline. And there's a question from Robin. Can you make the survey document available? Yes, I will put it on our website. I'll ask IT to do that tomorrow so you can see it.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, wow, I just thought it was excellent. Thank you, Francine.
I do want to give a shout out to Dr. Sharon Jay, who did put a lot of time and effort into that. So this is really her work. I'm just sharing it with you guys.
Okay, I'll share my screen to continue on with the agenda. I guess next is subcommittee updates. Jacqueline?
So really don't have any updates. The Zero Waste Task Force met last Friday, and we actually got a preview of the presentation that Ruth presented tonight. So we were able to give feedback, which you heard about this evening, that she did incorporate into the PowerPoint and their plan moving forward. Other than that, plan is to meet again every other week on Fridays from 12 to 1. So if there are other Sustainability Commission members that are interested in participating in that, feel free to email me. I'm just trying to coordinate the group together as we work through this.
Okay, thanks, Jacqueline. Let's see. Jenny had an interesting comment.
Yeah, the answer is yes. The answer is yes to that question, Jenny, for sure. It wasn't a scientific poll, but we can try to do better in the future if you'd like to assist us. I know we have academia folks on here like Jenny and Jacqueline, and so if we want to try and make this a little bit more or less biased in the future, that would be great.
I think just being mindful when we go out to reach out in ways that we get people that aren't already hooked in. I think if we do that, that's even if we don't design a scientific study from scratch, to just kind of be mindful of getting lots of different perspectives, even from people that aren't as hooked in and attuned to things. I think that's appropriate and just something I was thinking of. Yeah.
I totally agree, Jenny, and I'm really interested in piggybacking off the municipal solid waste management plan development process that Ruth was mentioning, because they're going to really do a lot of deep diving into communities to get folks who would not necessarily be involved, but we're going to try and really reach out. So I'm thinking about trying to piggyback off that and put in some of this more generalized sustainability questioning in there.
Okay. I'll share my screen so we can continue. Any other questions about anything? Okay. All right, we're down to new business. We're on schedule if there's any new business to discuss. Anyone have any new business that they'd like to bring up?
There are no comments or questions in the email box, just so you know. There's nothing in the email.
Oh, yeah, yes, thank you. Okay, yes, thank you.
Something I wanted to bring up that we talked about in the Zero Waste Committee before this last meeting was this idea of trying to share something maybe in the tax bills that go out to residents about recycling options and tips and ways to recycle. And so David had many great items on the website that he has, as well as others had shared some tips. And I had wanted to see if that is something that we think could be done, and maybe you can't answer that now, but what the timeline would be like if we came up with like a small one pager, or maybe more like a, what do you call that? An insert, but that's just like narrow, small, like kind of like a rack card size. That would be helpful if I worked on that with others in the task force, as well as the some nonprofits. Is that something that could be allowed?
Is the list going to be the same for every municipality?
Well, so the idea would be that, you know, and I have to go back and compile, and I mean, we can have this on our agenda for the Zero Waste Committee next week, is to provide tips and to share like hard to recycle items. So to make it universal, understanding that each municipality can have their own hauler, obviously, and have certain limitations. But if we can just share that again to everyone and try to avoid any conflicts, that would be the idea.
Yeah, maybe, focusing on the hardest to recycle things would be, the best for something going countywide.
Right. And maybe even tips like, you know, plastic is really hard to recycle if you go beyond a number 2. So if you have the opportunity, buying glass, or, you know, just little tips like that as well. So, you know, if we think it's possible, it's something we could maybe try to pull together rather quickly.
I think it is possible. If we develop the content, we can work with our treasurer's office, who is responsible for getting those out. And so coming up with the content, coming up with a funding source to get that printed out, and doing it. Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. We at our Zero Waste subcommittee, we can probably do more detailed talking.
Right. I think I could come up with the funding to get them printed. I just would need to know the time frame, and obviously then share something quickly that would be approved by the county to include. I know that something like this was done before with Eastern Delaware County Stormwater Collaborative, where they put some information in about stormwater management. And so that's what gave me the idea, but also needing to know like how many, and again, the critical piece as to when it would be needed.
Yeah, let's work on that together.
I've posted the link that Jacqueline was referring to. Now, you know, this had nothing to do with municipal recycling, and I should also mention that it's a volunteer effort. So it is, I believe, reasonably up to date, but it is a volunteer effort that keeps it going there.
Okay, Steve Clark has a question.
Sure. Do we still have somebody working on social media, or will we? Is that Pippa or no? I don't want to put anybody in the spot.
Pippa would love to do this, I'm sure, the social media.
I did that all over summer, but I can definitely get back into it now.
Okay, because I got a press release from Solarize Delco, and unfortunately it's a PDF. And so I don't know if there's any way you could like pull out like key things out of it and just, you know, make whatever you do, tweets or Instagrams or whatever.
Yeah,
but
I could do that.
You could do that. Could I just send that to, I don't know if I have an email.
I'll put my email in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Could you copy me also? I'm kind of interested in that too.
Who was that, Carol?
That was Carol. Yes. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Pippa.
Jenny had a good question. Could this be the first in a series of leaflet type mailers that we could develop and post?
Yeah, so we wouldn't necessarily have to print and send them all to the entire county, but we use this as a template for something that then municipalities and others can use to include with their own communications. I know some stormwater things are already included with water quality reports, but to have kind of a local roster of these outreach materials might be something we could contribute.
Yeah, definitely. Great.
Any other thoughts on that? Okay. And I guess you said there was not any public comment, Francine?
That's correct.
Any public comment from anyone in the public who's here live? No? Okay, with that, we're up to adjournment. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to mention before we adjourn? Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to adjourn today?
I'll make a motion we adjourn. Ed McGargy.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Would someone like to second that?
I'll second Becca Yurkovich.
Okay, thanks, Becca. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. We're adjourned today. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you,
Yeah,
everybody.
Carol.
Bye, everyone.